The Council's response to the human interference was swift and terrifying. Supreme Chancellor Vextar was the most powerful being in the galaxy, and he had ruled for over 300 years. He had seen many challenges to his authority, but none had made him as angry as the actions of the humans. He called an emergency meeting of the High Council in the Great Chamber on the capital world of Nexus Prime. The chamber was enormous and filled with representatives from hundreds of different species, but everyone knew that only a few voices really mattered in the council. Chancellor Vextar stood at the center of the chamber. His species was naturally tall and imposing, but age and power had made him even more frightening. He spoke in a voice that echoed through the chamber, and his words were broadcast to every world in the galaxy. Humans have violated the terms of their exile, he announced. They have interfered with galactic affairs, and they have spread lies and propaganda to undermine the stability of our civilization. The other council members listened in silence. They knew that when the Chancellor spoke like this, someone was about to suffer. Therefore, Vextar continued, I am issuing emergency decree 7741. Any species that aids or communicates with the humans will be considered enemies of galactic civilization. They will be marked for immediate extermination. The decree shocked even the Council's supporters. It was one thing to exile a troublesome species, but threatening to destroy anyone who helped them was something new and terrifying. Many council members began to worry that the Chancellor was going too far, but Vextar was not finished. He had been planning this moment for months, and he had prepared for every possibility. The humans think they can hide from us with their primitive technology, he said, but we have ways of finding them. He activated a holographic display that showed the locations of several human ships scattered across the galaxy. The display was so detailed that it showed the exact position of each ship and the number of crew members on board. The humans had thought they were invisible, but the Council had been tracking them all along. They had been allowed to continue their rescue operations because the Council wanted to see how far they would go. Now the game was over. The Chancellor gave orders for the immediate destruction of all human ships. Every vessel in the Council's fleet was ordered to hunt down and destroy the humans wherever they found them, but the Chancellor had made a serious mistake by waiting so long to act. The humans had been busy during their months of freedom, and they had made allies that the Council did not know about. Colonel Jaemin Park was Commander Jinwoo's younger brother, and he had been working on Earth to coordinate resistance activities across the galaxy while Jinwoo was rescuing people in space. Jaemin was building a network of supporters who were ready to fight against the Council. The network included soldiers who were tired of fighting a pointless war, scientists who had discovered the truth about the Council's lies, merchants who had lost everything because of the fighting, and ordinary people who just wanted the killing to stop. When the Chancellor's decree was announced, the resistance network activated immediately. Secret messages were sent to rebel cells on hundreds of worlds. Hidden weapons caches were opened. Communication networks that had been dormant for years suddenly came alive. The most important ally that the humans had gained was someone that even they did not know about. Serdok was an ancient being who had been hiding in the outer rim of the galaxy for centuries. Most people thought his species was extinct, but he had survived by disguising himself as a simple trader. Serdok was one of the last surviving architects, the species that had originally founded the Galactic Council 10,000 years ago. He had been waiting for centuries for someone to come along who could help him restore justice to the galaxy. When he learned about the humans and their actions, he knew that the time had finally come. He sent a secret message to Dr. Hyjin on the Taiguk, revealing his true identity and offering to help. The message contained information that changed everything. Serdok had been keeping records of the Council's crimes for centuries. He had proof of every lie they had told, every war they had started, and every species they had destroyed. More importantly, he had access to ancient architect technology that was far more advanced than anything the Council possessed. He offered to share this technology with the humans, but only if they promised to use it to restore peace to the galaxy. Dr. Hyjin was amazed when she received the message. She had studied the architects for months, and she had thought they were all dead. Now she was talking to one of them, and he was offering to help humanity save the galaxy. The meeting between Serdok and the human leaders took place on a small moon in neutral space. Serdok appeared to be just an ordinary alien trader, but when he revealed his true nature, The humans could see the wisdom and sadness in his ancient eyes. "I have been waiting for someone like you," he told them. "My people tried to bring peace to the galaxy, but we failed because we were too trusting. We believe that others shared our desire for justice." Commander Jinwoo studied the ancient being. "What happened to the rest of your people?" "Most were killed in the great betrayal," Serdok said. "A few escaped and went into hiding like I did. We have been waiting for the right moment to act, but we needed Eli's. We needed someone who shared our values." Captain Minho asked the question that everyone was thinking. "How do we know we can trust you?" Serdok smiled sadly. "You don't," he said. "But you will have to decide whether to trust me or watch the galaxy burn. I cannot force you to accept my help, but I can tell you that without it you will not succeed." The humans discussed the offer among themselves. They knew that accepting help from Serdok would make them even bigger targets for the council. But they also knew that they needed every advantage they could get in the end. "It was Dr. Haijin who made the decision. We accept your help," she said. "But we want you to know that we are not trying to replace the council with human rule. We want to create something better. A system where all species have a voice." Serdok nodded slowly. "That is exactly what my people dreamed of," he said. "Perhaps together we can make that dream come true." The alliance between the humans and the last architect changed the balance of power in the galaxy. Serdok provided the humans with advanced technology and detailed information about the council's secret bases and operations, but more importantly, he gave them hope. The knowledge that they were continuing the work of the architects gave the humans a sense of purpose that went beyond just stopping the war. They were fighting for the future of all life in the galaxy. The council had made their move, but they did not know that their enemies had just become much more dangerous. The real battle was about to begin, and Earth would not be standing alone anymore. The final battle for the galaxy began at Kepler Station, the most important trading post in known space. The station was enormous, bigger than most cities, and it was home to over 10 million people from hundreds of different species. It was also the key to controlling trade routes throughout the galaxy. Supreme Chancellor Vextar had decided that if he could not control Kepler Station, then no one could have it. He ordered his most powerful fleet to destroy the station completely, even though it would mean killing millions of innocent people. The Rebel Alliance had other plans. They had been secretly moving ships toward Kepler Station for weeks, preparing for the battle that would decide the fate of the galaxy. Two massive fleets now faced each other in the asteroid field around the station. On one side was the Council's fleet, over 1,000 warships with the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. They were commanded by Admiral Korax, the Chancellor's most trusted general who had never lost a battle. On the other side was the Rebel fleet, a mix of Rex Federation and independent ships that had joined together to fight the Council. They were outnumbered, but they had something the Council fleet did not have. They had hope, and they were fighting for something they believed in. Commander Jinwoo stood on the bridge of the Taiguk, looking out at the two fleets preparing for battle. His small group of human ships looked tiny compared to the massive alien warships, but he knew that they had advantages that no one else possessed. Captain Minho had been working with engineer Taeho to improve their dimensional travel technology. Now the human ships could not only become invisible to alien sensors, but they could also appear anywhere on the battlefield instantly. Dr. Haijin had been studying the ancient architect technology that Serdok had shared with them. She had discovered weaknesses in Council ship designs that could be exploited if they were clever enough. The battle began when Admiral Korax ordered his fleet to attack both the rebels and the civilian station at the same time. His plan was to destroy everyone who opposed the Council and show the galaxy what happened to those who defied the Chancellor's will. Rebel fleet fought bravely, but they were heavily outnumbered. Within minutes, dozens of ships were destroyed, and it looked like the Council forces would win easily. Admiral Korax smiled as he watched his enemies die. Then something happened that no one expected. The human fleet emerged from dimensional space directly between the two fighting fleets. Instead of joining the battle, they began broadcasting on all communication frequencies, but they were not sending military messages. They were sending personal recordings from human families back on Earth, children talking about their dreams for the future, parents describing their hopes for peace, elderly people sharing wisdom about forgiveness and the cost of hatred. The effect was immediate and Shocking soldiers who had been ready to kill and die for their cause suddenly heard voices that reminded them of their own families. They remembered why they had wanted to live in the first place. Lieutenant So Young was coordinating the most complex communication operation in galactic history, while the fleet's hesitated human negotiators made contact with commanders on both sides, sharing evidence of the Council's deception and offering alternatives to continued fighting. The key moment came when Captain Yun-Su spoke directly to her former comrades in the Vrex fleet. She had been one of their most respected commanders, and when she told them about the Council's lies, they listened. "We have been fighting the wrong enemy," she broadcast to the entire Vrex fleet. "The real enemy is not the Federation or the humans, it is the Council that has been manipulating us all." Her words carried weight because everyone knew her reputation for honesty and courage. One by one, Vrex commanders began to order their ships to stop firing. Some even turned their weapons toward the Council fleet. The Federation commanders were also listening to the human broadcasts. Admiral Chin had lost his own family in the early days of the war, and when he heard the human children talking about their dreams, he broke down and cried. He opened a communication channel to the Vrex fleet and spoke words that no one had expected to hear. "This war has gone on too long," he said. "We are all tired of killing and dying for nothing." The tide of battle turned when Supreme Chancellor Vexstar himself appeared on the main viewscreen of every ship in the system. He was furious that his carefully planned attack was falling apart. "You are all traitors," he screamed at the hesitating fleets. "You will obey my orders or you will be destroyed along with the rebels." But his threats only made things worse. Many of the Council fleet commanders had been having doubts about the war, and the Chancellor's angry words convinced them that they were fighting for the wrong side. The moment that changed everything came when the Chancellor ordered his remaining loyal ships to fire on the civilian station. The attack was meant to show everyone that he was still in control, but the order was never carried out. Captain Dae Young of the Council battleship Dominator refused to fire on innocent civilians when the Chancellor demanded to know why he was not obeying orders. Captain Dae Young gave an answer that was heard throughout the galaxy. "Because I am a soldier, not a murderer," he said. "I will not kill innocent people for your ambition." Other Council ship commanders began to refuse orders as well. The Chancellor's absolute authority was crumbling before his eyes as more and more ships defected to the rebel side. His fleet began to fall apart. Commander Jinwoo watched as the most powerful military force in the galaxy turned against itself without a single shot being fired by human weapons. The power of truth and compassion had accomplished what no amount of violence could have achieved. The final blow came when Admiral Korax himself surrendered his fleet to the rebels. He had been the Chancellor's most loyal general, but even he could not continue to serve a leader who would murder innocent civilians. Supreme Chancellor Vexstar found himself alone with only a few dozen ships still loyal to him. Faced with the choice between surrender and death, he chose to flee with his remaining followers into the unknown regions of space. The battle was over without the massive destruction that everyone had expected. Instead of millions of deaths, there had been a miracle. The galaxy had chosen peace over war and hope over fear, but Commander Jinwoo knew that the real work was just beginning. Stopping the war was only the first step. Now they had to figure out how to build a better future for all the species in the galaxy. The hardest battles were often the ones that came after the fighting stopped. Dr. Hyjin Kim could not sleep that night. She kept thinking about what she had found in the old alien records. The more she studied the ancient files, the more frightened she became. She had discovered something that could change everything, but she needed to be completely sure before she told. Commander Jin Woosh worked alone in her small laboratory on the Taiguk. The room was filled with computers and screens showing alien writing from thousands of years ago. Most of the crew was sleeping. But Hyjin could not rest. She had to keep digging deeper into the mystery. Around midnight, she found what she was looking for. It was buried deep in the oldest files from a planet that had been destroyed long ago. The file was written in a language that was so old that even the translation computers had trouble with it, but slowly the words became clear. The file talked about the first Galactic Council from 10,000 years ago. It was very different from the council that had thrown Earth out of the galaxy. The first council had been created by a species called the Architects, and they had been good people who wanted peace for everyone. The Architects had been amazing creatures. They could live for thousands of years, and they were Very wise, they had traveled to every planet in the galaxy and helped different species learn to work together. They had stopped wars before they could start, and they had taught everyone about fairness and kindness, but something terrible had happened. To them, the file described how other species had become jealous of the architect's power, even though the architects only used their power to help people. Some aliens were afraid that the architects would try to rule over Thema. Group of these jealous species had made a secret plan. They had told lies about the architects and made other people afraid of them. They had said that the architects were trying to control everyone and that they were dangerous. They had convinced many species to turn against the architects. The worst part was what happened next. The jealous species had attacked the architects when they were not expecting it. They had destroyed the architects' homeworlds and killed most of their people. The few architects who survived had to hide and pretend to be other species. Shai-Jin felt tears in her eyes as she read about the destruction of the architects. It was exactly what had happened to Earth, but much worse. The architects had been completely destroyed and everyone had been made to forget about them. She kept reading and found more terrible secrets. The same families and groups who had destroyed the architects had taken over the new council. They had been running the galaxy for thousands of years, and they had been getting rid of any species that reminded them of the architects. When morning came, Haijin ran to find Commander Jinwoo. She found him in the ship's dining room eating breakfast with some of the other officers. He looked up when he saw her running toward him. Jinwoo, she said, I found it. I found the truth about everything. She sat down and showed him her tablet screen. The other officers gathered around to listen. Jinwoo could see that she had been crying, and he knew that whatever she had found was very important. The council that threw us out, she said, they are the same people who destroyed the architects 10,000 years ago. Their families have been controlling the galaxy ever since. Captain Minho leaned forward. What do you mean the same people? Not the same individuals, Haijin said, but the same families, the same groups. They have been passing their power down from parent to child for thousands of years. They have been making sure that no species like the architects ever rises. Again, Lieutenant So Young looked at the screen. This explains the radio messages I have been hearing, she said. If the same group controls the council, then they could easily start a war between other species. Jinwoo studied the information carefully. So this war between the Vrex Empire and the Stellar Federation, it is not real, Haijin said. I mean, the fighting is real and people are really dying, but the reasons for the war are fake. The council has been lying to both sides and making them fight each other. She showed them more files that proved her point. The council had been secretly giving weapons to both sides of the war. They had been spreading false information to make each side hate the other. They had even arranged for attacks that were blamed on the wrong people. The plan was horrible, but it was very clever. By making the two biggest powers in the galaxy fight each other, the council could make sure that no one would be strong enough to challenge them when the war was over. The council would be the only power left. While they were talking, the ship's communication system made a loud beeping sound. Lieutenant So Young ran to answer it. She came back a few minutes later with a worried look on her face. Commander, she said, I just received a message from Earth President Lee wants to talk to you right away. Jinwoo went to his private office and activated the secret communication channel that connected the Taiguk to Earth. The image of President Lee appeared on the screen, but it was fuzzy and kept breaking up because of the alien ships blocking the signal. Jinwoo, the president said, I have been getting reports from our spy satellites. The war is spreading faster than we thought. At this rate, the entire galaxy will be destroyed within 2 years. Jinwoo told the president everything that Dr. Haijin had discovered. When he finished, President Lee was quiet for a long time. So, we were right, the president finally said. Earth was thrown out because we would have tried to stop this war. Yes, Jinwoo said, and now millions of people are dying while we sit here trapped and unable to help. President Lee made a decision that surprised everyone. I'm calling an emergency meeting of the Earth Council. He said we are going to vote on whether to break the blockade and try to stop this war. But Mr. President, Jinwoo said, we only have one ship and a few hundred people. How can we stop a galactic war? President Lee smiled for the first time in months, the same way the architects would have stopped it. He said, by telling the truth and showing people that there is a better way. After the call ended, Jinwoo sat in his office thinking about what the president had said. It seemed impossible that Earth could make a difference, but maybe that was exactly why they had to try. He called his officers together and told them about the president's plan. Some of them thought it was crazy, but others were excited about the chance to finally do something useful. Dr. Hyjin was the most excited of all. She had spent months learning about the architects, and now she felt like Earth had a chance to finish what the architects had started. We have something that no one else in the galaxy has, she said. We have the truth, and we have something else too. We have hope. Captain Minho stood up and saluted Commander Jinwoo. When do we leave? Jinwoo looked around the room at his brave crew members. There were just a few hundred humans with one old spaceship, but they had something that the powerful council did not have. They had the courage to do what was right even when it seemed impossible. Soon, he said, very soon we are going to break out of this prison and show the galaxy what Earth is really made of. The crew cheered and began preparing for the most dangerous mission in human history. They were going to break the alien blockade around Earth and try to stop a galactic war that had already killed billions of people. They knew that most likely they would fail and die in the attempt, but they also knew that they could not sit and do nothing while the galaxy burned around. The Earth was about to stand alone against the darkness. The plan to break out of Earth's prison was dangerous and probably impossible, but it was the only chance they had. Captain Minho had been working day and night with his engineering team to prepare the small fleet of ships that would try to escape the alien blockade. They had 6 ships in total. The Taeguk was the biggest and strongest, but it was still much smaller than the alien warships that surrounded Earth. The other 5 ships were converted civilian vessels that had been turned into fighters. They were fast, but they had very little armor or weapons. The key to their plan was something that no one expected. Engineer Taeho Kim was Dr. Hyjin's younger brother, and he had been working on a secret project for months while everyone else was worried about weapons and shields. Taeho had been studying the way that spaceships traveled through space. All spaceships use something called FTL drives to travel faster than light. But Taeho had discovered that human FTL drives were different from alien ones. Human drives could access a dimension that alien technology could not detect. It was like having a secret road that only humans knew about. The first test of Taeho's discovery happened on a Tuesday morning. Commander Jinwoo was on the bridge of the Taeguk when Taeho activated his modified F-L drive. The ship seemed to flicker for a moment, and then it was gone. The alien ships that were watching Earth did not even notice the Taeguk had vanished from their sensors completely. It was like the ship had never existed, but the ship was still there, just traveling through a dimension that the aliens could not see. Jinwoo felt his heart racing as he realized what this meant. We can go anywhere, he said to his crew. We can travel through space, and the aliens will never know where we are. The escape from Earth happened 3 days later. The 6 human ships activated their modified FTL drives and disappeared from the alien sensors. The alien fleet was completely confused. They sent out search parties, but they could not find any trace of the human ships. For the first time in 3 years, humans were free to travel through space. They could go anywhere they wanted without being followed or detected. It was like being invisible. Commander Jinwoo decided to head for the war zone. He wanted to see for himself what was happening in the galaxy. The Taeguk and its escort ships traveled for 2 days through the hidden dimension before they reached the edge of the fighting. What they found was worse than anything they had imagined. The space around the planet Keldon was filled with the wreckage of destroyed ships. There were pieces of metal and debris floating everywhere. Some of the pieces were so big that they looked like small moons. In the middle of all this destruction, they found something that made Jinwoo make a decision that would change everything. There was a damaged alien ship floating helplessly in space. It was a Vrex Empire vessel, and it was sending out a distress signal. The smart thing to do would have been to ignore the alien ship and continue on their mission. But Jinwoo could not do that. He could see that there were living beings on that ship, and they were going to die if no one helped them. He made an announcement to his crew. We are going to rescue the survivors from that ship. Some of his officers were shocked. Commander Minho said, "Sir, that is a Vrex ship. They are our enemies." Jinwoo looked at his friend No Minho. He said, "They are not our enemies. They are victims just like everyone else in this war." The rescue operation was difficult and dangerous. The Vrex ship was badly damaged and it was leaking radiation. But the human crews worked together to save as many aliens as they could. They brought the survivors onto their own ships and gave them medical treatment. The leader of the wreck survivors was a female officer named Captain Yun-Su. She was badly injured, but she was still conscious when she saw the human medics treating her wounds. She could not believe what was happening. "Why are you helping us?" she asked Dr. Haijin, who was working on her injuries. "Because you are hurt," Haijin said. "Simply because you need help, Captain." Yun-Su had been fighting in the war for 2 years. She had been told that humans were dangerous monsters who wanted to destroy all other life forms. But these humans were risking their own lives to save her and her crew when she was strong enough to stand. Haijin showed her the evidence about the councils. Conspiracy. Captain Yun-Su studied the files carefully. She was a smart officer, and she could see that the evidence was real. "You mean my people have been lied to?" She said. "Everyone has been lied to," Haijin replied. "Your people and the Federation people. You have been fighting each other while the real enemy laughs and grows stronger." Captain Yun-Su was quiet for a long time. Then she made a decision that surprised everyone. "I want to help you," she said. "I want to help you stop this war." The news of the human rescue spread faster than anyone expected. Other ships in the area heard about it, and word began to travel through the fleet networks. Both wrecks and Federation ships were talking about the mysterious vessels that appeared at battle sites. Not to fight, but to save lives, the humans continued their rescue operations wherever they found ships in trouble. They did not care which side the ships belonged to. They treated all wounded equally, and asked for nothing in return except the chance to share the truth about the war. Lieutenant So Young was monitoring all the radio communications from across the galaxy. She reported that the stories about the human ships were spreading everywhere. Soldiers who had been ready to die for their were starting to ask questions about why they were really fighting. Commander Jinwoo realized that they were doing more than just saving lives. They were planting seeds of doubt in the minds of the people who were fighting the war. Every person they rescued went back to their own people with a new understanding of what was really happening. The council tried to stop the stories from spreading. They sent out messages saying that the humans were lying and that the rescue operations were just another form of attack, but it was too late. The truth was spreading faster than they could control it. Some of the most powerful military leaders in both fleets began to secretly communicate with each other. They shared the evidence that the humans had given them, and they began to realize that they had been manipulated into fighting a war that served no one except the corrupt. Council. The breakthrough came when a group of Rex commanders and Federation admirals met in secret to discuss what they had learned. Captain Yun-Su was there, representing the growing number of officers who wanted to end the war for the first time in 3 years. Military leaders from both sides sat down together and talked instead of fighting. They compared the evidence, and they realized that they had been played against each other by the same enemy. The meeting was supposed to be completely secret, but Lieutenant So Young was listening to their communications. She heard them making plans to contact more officers and to start working together instead of fighting. When she reported this to Commander Jinwoo, he felt hope for the first time since the war began. Maybe Earth really could make a difference. Maybe their small fleet of ships could help stop the biggest war in galactic history. But he also knew that their actions had not gone unnoticed. The Council would soon realize that humans were interfering with their plans, and they would try to stop them. The real test was coming, and Earth would have to prove that they were ready to stand alone against the most powerful forces in the galaxy. Commander Jinwoo Park stood at the big window of his spaceship and looked out at the stars. The stars looked the same as they did 3 years ago, but everything else had changed back then. Earth was part of the big galactic family. Now Earth was alone and forgotten. His ship was called the Taeguk, and it was the last big spaceship that humans had. The ship was not very fancy, but it was strong, and it could travel fast through space. Jinwoo had been the captain of this ship for 2 years now, and every day he wondered if humans would ever see their home planet again. The other crew members were working hard around him. They all knew that their job was very important. They were the only humans left in space, and they had to keep watch over everything that was happening in the galaxy. Most of the crew had families back on Earth, and they missed them very much. Dr. Haijin Kim walked up to Jinwoo with a tablet in her hands. She was the smartest person on the ship, and she spent most of her time studying old alien books and records. She looked worried and tired, like she had not slept for many days. Jinwoo, we need to talk, she said. Her voice was quiet, but he could hear that she was scared about something. What did you find this time? He asked. He knew that Haijin always found interesting things in the old alien records, but lately her discoveries had been making everyone worried. She showed him the tablet screen. It had pictures of old alien writing and strange symbols that looked very old. The writing was in a language that most aliens had forgotten about long ago. I found something terrible, she said. The Council did not just throw us out of the galaxy. They have done this before to other species, many other species. Jinwoo felt his heart beat faster. What do you mean, look at this? She pointed to the screen. These are records from 1,000 years ago. There was a species called the Builders. They were very good at making peace between different alien groups. They tried to stop wars and help everyone get along. What happened to them? The Council said they were too dangerous. They said the Builders were trying to control everyone. So they threw the Builders out of the galaxy, just like they threw us out. But that is not the worst part. Jinwoo waited for her to continue. After the Builders were gone, the Council erased all the records about them. They made everyone forget that the Builders ever existed. And then she pointed to another part of the screen. Then there were the healers. They were thrown out 200 years ago. And the peacekeepers. They were thrown out 50 years ago. Jinwoo stared at the screen. He felt sick to his stomach. You mean we are not the first? No, she said. We are just the latest. The Council has been doing this for a very long time. Any species that tries to bring peace to the galaxy gets thrown out and then forgotten. While they were talking, Captain Minho Choi came running into the room. He looked very upset and out of breath. His uniform was dirty, and he had been working on his small fighter ship for many hours. Commander, he said, I just came back from the border systems. You need to hear this. Jinwoo turned to look at him. What did you see? The war is getting worse. Much worse. Minho said. The Vrex Empire and the Stellar Federation are not just fighting over planets anymore. They are destroying entire star systems. They have weapons that can kill whole planets, and they are using Themijin covered her mouth with her hand. How many people have dead? Minho shook his head. Billions, maybe more. The Council was supposed to stop this kind of thing, but they are not doing anything. They're just letting it happen. Jinwoo walked over to the big window again and looked out at the stars. He thought about Earth and all the people living there. Earth was surrounded by alien ships that would not let anyone in or out. People on Earth were running out of food and medicine because they could not trade with other planets. Back on Earth, President Dong Hyen Lee was having his own problems. He sat in his office in Seoul and looked at reports from all over the planet. The reports were all bad. Cities were losing power because they could not get the special materials they needed from other planets. Hospitals were running out of medicine that could only be made on alien worlds. His assistant came into the office with another stack of papers. Mr. President, she said, the food situation is getting worse. The alien blockade is not letting any supply ships through. President Lee rubbed his tired eyes. How much food do we have left? Maybe 6 months if we are very careful. With Ith stood up and walked to his window. He could see the city below, but he could also see the lights in the sky. Those lights were alien ships making sure that no one could leave Earth and no one could come to help them. His phone rang, and he answered it. Mr. President, this is General Park from the Space Defense Force. What is it, General? Our spy satellites have picked up something strange. The alien war is spreading. The fighting has reached the Andromeda trade routes. If this continues, the whole galaxy will be at war within a year. President Lee sat down heavily in his chair. And what about us? We are still cut off, sir. No one will talk to us. No one will trade with us. We are completely alone. After the call ended, President Lee looked at a picture on his desk. It was a picture of Earth taken from space. The planet looked so beautiful and peaceful in the picture. It was hard to believe that the same planet was now a prison. Meanwhile, back on the Taeguk, Commander Jinwoo was meeting with his senior officers. They were all sitting around a table in the ship's main meeting room. The room was small, but it was the best they had. Dr. Haijin was showing everyone her research about the species that had been thrown out of the galaxy before humans. Captain Minho was explaining what he had seen in the war zones, and Lieutenant So Young Han was trying to make sense of all the radio messages they had been hearing from different parts of the galaxy. Commander So Young said, I have been listening to the alien radio traffic for weeks now. The messages are very strange. What kind of strange? Jinwoo asked. It sounds like someone is giving orders to both sides of the war. The messages are encrypted, but I can tell they are coming from the same source. Someone is telling the Vrex Empire what to do, and someone is telling the Stellar Federation what to do, and it might be the same. Jinwoo felt a cold feeling in his stomach. You think someone is controlling both sides of the war? It looks that way, she said, and if that is true, then this war is not really about the things they say it is about. It is about something else. Hyjin looked up from her tablet. I think I know what it is about, she said. The pattern is always the same. First, the council finds a species that might cause trouble for them, then they make that species look dangerous to everyone else, then they throw that species out of the galaxy, then they start a war that kills millions of people. And when the war is over, they are more powerful than before. Captain Minho hit the table with his fist. So they threw us out because they knew we would try to stop the war. Exactly, Hyjin said, and now the war is happening just like they planned. Jinwoo stood up and walked around the room. He was thinking very hard about everything they had learned. The council had thrown Earth out of the galaxy because they knew humans would try to make peace. Now there was a terrible war happening and millions of people were dying, and Earth was trapped and could not help, but maybe that was exactly what the galaxy needed. Maybe Earth needed to find a way to help even though they were alone. Maybe being thrown out of the galaxy was not the end of the story. Maybe it was just the beginning. The weeks after the battle at Kepler Station were both exciting and terrifying for everyone in the galaxy. The old order was gone, but no one knew what would replace it. Billions of people across thousands of worlds were looking for leadership and hope. Many species wanted to make Commander Jinwoo or President Lee the new leader of the galaxy. They had seen how humans had stopped the war, and they believed that humans should rule over everyone else, but the humans surprised everyone by refusing this offer. President Lee made a speech that was broadcast to every world in the galaxy explaining why Earth would not become the new galactic dictator. We did not fight to replace one tyrant with another, he said. We fought to create a system where everyone has a voice, where decisions are made by all people together, not by the strongest or the richest. Instead of claiming power for themselves, the humans proposed something that had never been tried before in galactic history. They wanted to create a truly democratic council where every species would have equal representation regardless of their size or military strength. The idea was revolutionary. Small colonies that had never had any political power would have the same voting rights as ancient empires that had ruled for thousands of years. Young civilizations that had just learned to travel between stars would have the same voice as species that had been exploring the galaxy for millions of years. Many of the powerful species were not happy with this idea. They had been used to having special privileges, and they did not want to give up their advantages. But the humans had allies now, and the tide of public opinion was on their side. Hyjin Kim was elected as the first Secretary General of the new Galactic Alliance. The vote was not even close. Representatives from over 3,000 species chose her to lead the new government. Her first official act was to establish the Department of Peaceful Resolution, a new organization dedicated to preventing conflicts before they could turn into wars. The department would use negotiation, education, and understanding instead of threats and violence. The ancient architect became her chief advisor. His knowledge of galactic history and his understanding of different species made him invaluable in creating the new government. He had waited centuries for this moment, and he was determined to help make it work. The transformation of galactic society was not easy. Many species had been fighting each other for so long that they had forgotten how to work together. Some groups tried to restart the old conflicts, and others refused to accept the new democratic system, but there were also many success stories. Captain Yun-Su and Admiral Chun, who had been enemies during the war, became close friends and worked together to rebuild the damaged trade routes. Their example showed others that former enemies could become allies. Engineer Taeho Kim became the head of the new galactic technology sharing program. His dimensional travel technology was shared with all species, allowing everyone to benefit from human innovations. At the same time, humans learned from alien sciences and everyone became smarter. Together, the biggest challenge was rebuilding all the worlds that had been damaged during the war. Entire star systems had been destroyed and billions of people needed new homes. The new Galactic Alliance created massive reconstruction projects. That brought different species together to work on common goals. Commander Jinwoo was promoted to admiral and put in charge of the Alliance Defense Force, but this was not a military organization designed for conquest. Instead, it was a rescue and exploration service that helped any world in need. The old warships were converted into hospital ships, research vessels, and cargo transports. The same technology that had been used to destroy planets was now being used to heal them and make them better places to live. Lieutenant So Young-han became the head of the new Galactic Communication Network. Her job was to make sure that all species could talk to each other and share information freely. The network prevented misunderstandings that could lead to conflicts. One of the most important changes was in education. Children from different species began to learn together in mixed schools. They studied each other's histories and cultures, and they grew up understanding that diversity was a strength, not a weakness. The new Galactic Alliance faced many challenges in its early years. Some species tried to cheat the system. Others refused to follow the new laws. There were still conflicts and disagreements, but they were handled through negotiation and compromise instead of violence. President Lee visited many worlds during the first year of the new government. He was amazed by how quickly things were changing. Former enemies were working together to solve problems that had seemed impossible before. On world, he visited a hospital where Vrex doctors were working alongside Federation nurses to treat patients from a dozen different species. On another world, he saw a mixed crew of humans and aliens working together to build new cities for refugees. The most moving moment came when he visited a school where children from species that had been at war were playing together and learning each other's languages. He realized that these children would grow up in a galaxy where cooperation was normal and war was just a story from the past. The transformation was not complete. There were still problems to solve and challenges to face. Some of the old council members who had escaped with Chancellor Vexstar were still hiding somewhere in the galaxy, plotting their return, but the foundation had been laid for a better future. The galaxy had learned that peace was possible when people chose to work together. Instead of fighting each other, Earth had stood alone against the darkness, but in doing so, it had lit a torch that spread light to every corner of the galaxy. The age of endless war was ending, and the age of cooperation and understanding was beginning. The humans had proven that sometimes the smallest voice speaking for justice and peace could be more powerful than the largest army. The galaxy would never be the same again. In the end, Earth had not conquered the galaxy. Instead, it had freed the galaxy to become something better than it had ever been before. And that was the greatest victory of all. The stars that had once looked down on a galaxy torn apart by hatred now shone on worlds working together toward a common future. The universe was vast and full of wonders, and finally all its children were free to explore it together.